Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Lorna. I hope you enjoy the project that we're going to do today, so let's get started. So we're going to start this project. I have a inside diameter frame of 12 by 12. I picked it up at my local thrift store and pulled the glass out. And I pulled up the little clips to hold the glass in, which we want to keep in there just to kind of give us some added security when we put the glass in. Before I used it, there were some, scrapes and nicks, which I just used a very fine grit sandpaper on it, and then just gave a light black paint, spray paint out of the can. Wasn't a big deal. And so now I'm ready to go ahead and put the glass in and get it prepared for our project. You want to, of course, clean the glass, both sides really well. And I do notice there's a few little tiny chips along the edge, one down here, but that's not going to matter because that portion's not going to show. And we're going to very gently, we're going to put our glass in. Famous last words. A little finagling here. And I've got my little thing here to help a little bit. There we go. So I've just got the clear Elmer's glue, and I'm going to start by just filling in those areas as much as possible. So now we're going to go ahead and gently push down our tabs to help hold the glass in. That is, if they cooperate. I will come back and push these down some more since they're not resting totally on the glass like I want. And of course, since doing this video, this is the first time I've had that happen, of course. But we will carry on. Step one, and we're going to let that glue dry, and we'll go on to the next step. So this has set overnight, and when I checked it before I went to bed, I ran another bead of glue around this. When we pour the resin from the other side, we just don't want any leaks because it can get to be very messy. So I've got my pattern here that I've got all traced out, and we're going to tape that now to the back side. And we're going to flip it over. Gives us our pattern showing. And again, just to prevent issues with leaking out the bottom, when we start to pour, I'm going to run another bead along the edge. And like I said, it's not going to be a problem because once we pour the resin, the glue will blend right in and you won't be able to see the bead. Of course, you want to pop any air bubbles. I have a toothpick here, and I think we're good to go. So the way that I have started using lines so that I don't have the ooey gooey messy lines that some of the other stuff leaves, I make it with Polymer Clay and Polymer Clay extruder. This one says it's a sugar paste extruder. It's the same thing. Comes with lots of different patterns in it. Here's the one with the circles. I use the largest one to make mine with, but if you're adventurous, you can certainly use some flat lines, or there's even a couple of larger lines. The only drawback to that is you can only do one at a time. So these are pretty easy to use. You can of course change the different patterns that go in there, and even though this is an oven bake clay, we're going to encase it in resin, so we don't have to bake it, but we do have to get it prepared. And the best way to do that is just to roll it between your hands, start getting your body warmth in the clay. If you are a Polymer Clay user, you already know this, but just in case those of you who haven't, this is going to be the process, and you're going to know when the clay is ready when you roll it in half and it doesn't crack or break. And this one's pretty much there. I just roll it out in these really long Tootsie Rolls. And this piece is ready, but I'm going to need a little bit more than that to go into the extruder for long pipes, I guess we can call them. I'm going to just cut off another slice of clay here and get it ready to go in there. That one again is a little too much to do at one time. Cracks, it's still cold and unmalleable, so we're going to just keep warming it up, getting it thinner and thinner and folding it, because it won't go through it won't give you nice, good, malleable little rods, little lines, if you don't prepare it well. So we're going to go with these. And the other end screws off. Put your pattern on there. And we're going to put the clay in. Tighten it on, and then start the process. And then we're done, and we want to lay them out nice and neatly and cut them off. Separate them out. And we'll get started. So sometimes the pattern still doesn't want to hug right up against the glass. I like it to do that, makes it easier. So I've just got myself a dish towel here, and we can put that under there to kind of push our pattern right up against the glass. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and make a line. And you're going to need a X-Acto knife. And we're just going to put our clay line into the glue. Give it a cut and move on. I apologize for getting my head into the frame there. From a distance, it's just kind of hard to make sure that you're all lined up the way you want it to be. And I'm going to make this line next. And the reason for the glue underneath instead of just laying them out there is that, again, we are making little wells, and we need to make sure we don't have any leakage from one color into the other side. In other words, these leaves here are going to be green, while on the other side is going to be another color. So, and we also want these lines to stay in place as we are placing others up against them. That can be a little tricky sometimes, although you can't get away from that all the time. Okay. I find sometimes I like to be a little more exacting with my glue than this tip will provide at times. So I'll put a little bit of glue out there and use my now disappeared toothpick. So now that we've got all the lines laid down and everything has dried, before we go to the next step, you want to check all your joints, because that's where, you know, you could have leaks. A couple of different options you have. I use this sometimes. If I can get it in focus there. I like it because it's got this super fine tip on it. As you can see, really super fine tip. And you can just go and put it in any place where it looks like there's some open spots, so that you don't get any leaks. If you don't want to buy this, you can just take some regular Elmer's glue, mix some black acrylic paint in it, and use your toothpick and dab some of the joints to make sure that you don't have any leaks. I still always have a little tiny one somewhere, but you want to minimize that as much as possible. Then the next thing I like to do before I move on is I mix up some resin, and I let it thicken up. It's pretty thick. You can mix it up, let it sit for a while, get a thick consistency. Sorry. And then I like to just kind of paint over the top of all the lines, because even though we're going to encase everything, you still may have some of the top of the lines that will be exposed, and I want to cover those in resin, and this is the best time to do that. So the next step in this process is to fill in the center. It's going to be a clear resin pour, and I don't like it to stay plain, so I have a couple of different plates here, or dishes here, with different sized broken up glass. Again, I go to the thrift store or garage sales and pick up really inexpensive photo frames or picture frames, and especially if they're really beat up at the thrift store and they're just, you know, $1 or so each. Bring them home. Be really careful, of course. I put them, I wrap the glass inside of a thin towel, and then take a hammer to it and break it up, separate it out, and I just use it to give some interesting visual depth to the clear spaces. So I start by filling in some of the larger areas with larger pieces of glass wherever they can fit, and just continue to fill the space up until we get to the smaller portions, and go from there. So now that we have the pieces of glass in there, I've gone ahead and mixed up some clear resin. And if you haven't used resin before, when you mix the hardener and the resin itself and start to stir, you can see that it's kind of milky, cloudy looking. And you just have to keep stirring until it gets clear again. And that means that it's sufficiently mixed. And I try to go a little slower because it whips in more bubbles, but it's just kind of the way it is. And I'll just fast forward this while I go ahead and get it mixed up. have to contend with bubbles a little bit more, try to get them, work them out from underneath the glass. But then you just use your heat gun on low and get them out, and you won't get them all, but it still gives it character, and it looks really nice. And there we have it. I see a few places where it's getting over into some of my other wells, and I'll have to go in and just sort of clean those out and get them ready for the other colors that are going to go in those. Okay, it's been 24 hours since we poured the clear resin, and I wanted to briefly just talk to you about the few little leaks that I had yesterday. I had one here at the tip of this leaf, and I had another one up here. It turns out that it was not that my joints weren't connected, but when I poured the resin, it actually, some of the lines in putting them in were pushed down a little, and therefore the resin leaked over into my other little wells. So what I did was I took this product here. It's Slick dimensional fabric paint with the fine tip, and I just went in here where the resin was overflowing, and I just dabbed just a little bit around the corners just to fill up, make a little reservoir, a barrier for the resin that was slowly leaking in here. So I hope that kind of helps. It's all dry now, and we're going to go to start pouring some color. So I'm going to start with the leaves, and I want to kind of have two-tone, a darker and a lighter, just to kind of give a reflection of changes in light instead of all one solid color. So I've mixed a little cup of resin, and I started out with this color called Limeade, and then I put just a small drop of another green in it to darken it just a little bit more, and this one's called Lime Green. And so I'm going to start this with being my lighter colors, and then I'll put some more of the lime green in the color to make the dark portions. So now we're going to do the background, and just again as an extra layer of protection, I went ahead and put some painter's tape around the edges just in case we get a leak, because having it leak down through the bottom and having wet on the top is a nightmare. So that's just an extra precaution in case all the glue and everything that we put on there doesn't work. So I'm wanting to pour in the outer regions with something a little more opaque and less see-through. So what I'm using is some acrylic paint, and these are the colors that I'm using: brilliant yellow and titanium white. And I mix these in the colors and shades that I want before I put them into my resin. I apologize, the video shut down before I finished showing everything, but I think we get the general idea. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like and subscribe. If you've got any questions, I will attempt to answer those for you the best that I can. Just put something in the comments below. I will also list below the materials that I used, and thank you for your time.